and why the change, how people react to the change, and what the organizations need to take care to to accept the change, or you can say to continue with the changes, uh, and how the change is important for innovation, how people should react on changes, different categories of people, and different behavior of people uh, in any organization uh, react differently on the changes. So that was our discussion. And we also saw the whole organization is divided in four zones, which is zone one, the EU and your immediate working environment, then zone two, the internal departments, and zone three, the near external factors, and the far external factors as zone four. So any organization will have these four different areas which affect the working of the organization. And we also saw why change is important, why we need to move on along with the market or along with the changes. And we saw different types of changes. Uh, so that was in chapter number one. Now, when we discuss about, we already discussed about the changes. The next thing is that how we can adapt the changes. So, what's the strategy for adapting the changes or for implementing the changes? So, chapter two is discussing about what's the strategy. So, it says change which happens by design rather than by accident is far likely to create value and benefits to the organization. That is, the change what we plan, what we do by planning and by considering as a project creates more value than any change that happens by accident. By accident, it means by sudden, without planning, right? So any change that comes without planning, okay, may create some value to the organization, to the employees of the organization, okay, but the change that we plan and we do it and we implement it as a plan, as a project, will have a more value to and benefits to the organization. Okay, so to bring a change by a plan or by design, we need to develop a strategy. We need to develop a strategy. So, what's the strategy? Fine. So, understanding the idea of strategy development will help in understanding why and how the change is necessary. Right. So, organization have to take a stock review what their purpose or could be, determine where they want to be, and then plan how to get there. This is what about the change. But any organization that want to adapt the change, that want to bring in the change, must understand, okay, and must plan for it and must see where they are, what they have, and where they can be after the change, and what they will achieve after the change. So, strategic planning is must for any organization nowadays, since instability and competition is everywhere in public sector or in private sector. There is a lot of competition. So, organization must have some planning to bring the changes in the organization, to adapt the changes so that they will be in competition in the market, right? So strategic planning is a three-stage process. So for that we need a strategic planning, and it can be set as a three-stage process. Number one, carrying out the analysis of the organizational external context and internal conditions and the resources at its disposal. It means first we need to analyze our organization from the external context, where we are in the market, for example, locally, internationally, from what is our internal condition, what we are inside the organization, and what resources we have. Okay, whether it is in human resources, okay, physical resources, intangible resources, tangible resources, all type of resources that we have, moral values and everything, that we need to analyze at the first stage in a three-stage process of strategic planning. So as at the first stage, carrying the analysis of the organization, external context, internal condition, and the resources. Number two is identifying and developing different strategic choices and evaluating their benefit to the organization. So you might be have different plans after you analyze all everything, your the organization condition, the resources it has, how good the organization is in the market. Then you may come up with more than one plan, more than one strategy. Like if we go strategy one will have benefits, strategy 2 will have benefits, strategy 3 will have the benefits. So you need to identify the different strategic choices and their benefits to the organization. Then you implement the preferred strategy. This will be a third stage where you implement the preferred strategy. Fine. So strategic planning will be a three-stage process. So at the first stage is to carry out the analysis. So this strategic planning three-stage process is given in this figure. First, we analyze, called strategic analysis, where we analyze the whole organization from the internal as well as the external point of view. Then we create some choices of strategic choices, what we need to do and how we get the benefit. And then we implement this. Any one of these choices will be implemented. Looking at the benefits, we will be implementing that. Fine. So at this first stage is to strategic analysis, right? So strategic planning and its implementation process shown below where key four questions are addressed. In this analysis of the first stage of strategic planning is strategic analysis. In this analysis, we need to ask four key questions to ourselves as an organization to know where to analyze ourselves, to analyze the whole organization. The first question is where are we now as an organization? Where do we stand in the market? Right? So the question is where are we now? What is the purpose of our organization as expressed in current mission statement? What are our core principal values? What are the key factors of success in our sector? What expertise do we have? What are we good at doing? Right? So this is some sub questions. The main question is that where are we now? So this we need to analyze these questions. We need to get answer to these questions. Right. So how do we get these as questions? We can apply some analysis tools like steeple analysis or internal audit, or you can also do the SWOT analysis. Okay. So any analysis tools can be used here. And if we analyze this, we get some output or we get to know about the organization, something about the organization. For example, we understand the impact of external contextual factors facing the organization. We know when we talk about where are we know, we will get to know where we are standing, what are our external factors. Okay, understanding of internal resources available, understanding of organization strength and weaknesses in relation to opportunities and threats. By doing the SWOT analysis, you can understand it. A review of organization's core values, guiding principles, and mission statements. This can be analyzed here. This can be the output or outcomes of this analysis of this question, what you call where are we know. If we analyze them, we'll have this understanding of where we are standing in the market. Now, the second question is where do we want to be? So it is not only that you understand where we are, but we also need to analyze where do we want to be, right? In this strategic planning, in this analysis, where do we want to be? That what we want to achieve. right? In this also we have some sub questions like, are we still in the same business that we started? That is what is mentioned in our mission statement, vision statement. Where should the organization position itself in relation changes in the external context? Is our mission statement still relevant? What is our vision for the future? What is our strategic priorities, strategic objectives, and everything? This is about where do we want to be as an organization after the change, right? So we can use the tools like Steeple again, audit, internal audit, SWOT, or what if analysis. We can look at the mission and the vision statement. We can also set the smart objectives of to know like where we want to be, right? After 3 years, after 4 years, after 5 years, right? So this will give you help you a decision on strategic priorities based on the outcome of the exploration. So you can make a decision here like, okay, what we have to, what we need to do. Okay, we can analyze it and we can make a decision, okay, from where we can start, what we have to do. We can set the priorities in work, okay, in the work. Fine, we can set the smart objectives to deliver the strategic priorities. Fine. These are all will be the outcomes for this question. Where do we want to be? So the first question, where are we now? The second is where do we want to be? And the third is how will we get there? Or how do we get there? Right? So for that, we need to set some objectives, clearly define the responsibilities and the priorities to achieve the strategic objectives, right? We need to build the teams, fine, that work on these every objective. Right. So this is what again, right? So this can be analyzed through the implementation of the project, through the smart objectives, setting the smart objectives, right? Setting the vision statement of the project, right? These are all can be used to analyze this question, like how we'll get there. So for example, how do we achieve our strategic objectives? Okay, we need to set some objectives, smart objectives. We can measure it, we can achieve it, fine. How should the action be organized? Who will take the responsibility for achieving the any objectives? Fine. So so what will be the outcome if we analyze this is the outcome will be that you will have teams working to achieve the objectives, working to achieve what is being analyzed, right? So there will be responsibilities, there will be people, there will be teams, right, who will take care of them, okay, who will take care of all these questions and will address these questions. Right. And finally, how can we measure the progress and stay on track? Again, this is very important. Like if we decided to move on, right, and we are moving on according to some plan, so we must say like, okay, how we will measure these achievements, how we will measure these achievements. It is not only that we are just planned something or moving ahead without measuring things, what is happening and how it is happening, whether it is going in the correct way or not. Right. For that, we need some project monitoring, for example, project teams and developments. Right. The review or monitoring and review process is important for that. So these are four key questions in analyzing the organization. So strategic analysis. In a strategic analysis, four key questions are where are we now? Where do we want to be? How we will get there? And how can we measure progress and stay on track? This is question number four. Okay. In these questions, we talk about the mission and the vision statement. In a strategic analysis, we need to also analyze our mission and the vision statement, because this mission and vision statement will set that what we are doing and where we want to be, right? So the without the mission and the vision statement for any organization, we cannot understand like what this organization is doing and till how long it will do, right? So if they don't have any plans, like they will not survive in the market. Any organization must have the plans and they want to survive in the market. If they don't have any plans, they may not survive in the market, right? So vision and the mission statements are very, very important. Okay. Give me a second, please. Just 2 minutes, I'll be back. So a mission statement is what? The mission and vision statements are important for any organization to show that this where this organization stands and what is the future plans of the organization. So a mission statement describe the purpose of organization, and this should answer the questions like where does our organization exist, what sort of business we are in, at what values and principles support what we do. This is about a mission statement. For example, if you look at some of the mission statements, like for example, for Microsoft in 2008, it says to enable people and business throughout the world to realize their full potential. This is the mission statement of Microsoft, right? This tells that they are into uh, people and into businesses, right? So they are getting into the products, and the Microsoft products will be with the people and with in the businesses to help them, or to help them in their workplaces, right? So this says to enable people and businesses throughout the world to realize their full potential, right? By using the Microsoft products, for example, or by using Microsoft tools. Similarly, if you look at the mission statement of Google, so it says organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. Right. So Google is want to work universally, making the information useful and accessible to the whole world. That is the mission statement, right? So look at you may look at different companies' mission statements, and you may understand like where they are, like what are their values and principles, like what they are doing, right? That is the mission statement. Now coming to the vision statement. Our vision statement purpose is to communicate a credible and easily understood picture of organization's future success. And it should answer question what will future success look like in the organization. Right. It should extend expectations and aspirations and motivations of those working to create the future state. So that is a mission statement. Sorry, the vision statement. If you look at some examples, like for example, if you look at the Microsoft vision statement, right? There will be a personal computer on every desk running Microsoft software. So nowadays you see that they achieve this vision of 25 years. So every organization will set some vision statements of some for some time that they want to achieve, that they want to achieve in the upcoming times, right? So we need to set the vision statement for anything, right? So that's about the vision and the mission statement. So strategic analysis include this analyzing of vision and the mission statement. Okay. Now in strategic analysis, I saw that the analysis is done, the whole organization analysis has been done from external view and from the internal. Okay, so both externally as well as internally, both externally as well as internally. Okay. A winning strategy requires scanning the external context of the organization to gather the information which can be used to determine the strategy for change. That is, scanning the external context where the organization lies, right? So the first technique in this scanning is you can do the steeple analysis. What is steeple analysis? It is analyzing the social, technological, economic, environmental, political, legal, and ethical things. That is ethical analysis. So steeple analysis can be done to know the external context of the organization, to gather the information from the external context. You can look at the social things, you can analyze technological things, economical things, environmental, political things, ethical, legal. Okay, all these things you can analyze from the external point of view or external view of the organization. So the external context includes zone 3 and zone 4. Zone 3 is a near external context and zone 4 is a far external context. Okay, so in the near external context, we have competitors, customers, clients, suppliers, and local influencers. Whereas in far external context, we have national and international, social and technological, economic and environmental, political, legal, and ethical influences. This is far external, which is far external context, zone 4 context. Okay, so we need to analyze in both near external context and far external context to know the organization stand and how we use this information to plan a strategy for the change. We can do that through steeple analysis on each dimension of steeple analysis, which is social dimension, technological dimension, economical dimension, environmental dimension, political dimension, legal dimension, and ethical dimensions of the external context. Okay, in which the organization functions, we need to analyze them. Okay, we can put a table of such form and write a dimension and write the potential drivers in the zone 3 as well as in zone 4. For example, if we talk about social dimension, what are the main social, demographic, and cultural aspect to consider for the next 5 years? Okay, because you are planning the implement of the change for the upcoming 5 years. So we consider the social issues or demographical issues or cultural things for the next 5 years. Okay, yeah, so this should be considered for zone 3, that is near external context, and also zone 4, that is far external context. So what are the potential drivers in social thing is availability of appropriate qualified and experienced workforce. So, well, in the next 3 to 5 years, that what changes we were making, do we have the availability of the workforce, right? That is the good question here because we take from the near context the workforce into the organization. So we need that. Similarly, social and cultural role and reputation of organization in the locality. Who are our key stakeholders? What are its nature? Is the nature of our relationship with them is also very important in the near context. For example, who are our customers? How is our relationship with our customers? Whether they are going to continue with us for the next 5 years or not? Okay, what is the impact? So on. If you look at the far external, in case of social things, is the social attitudes and behaviors, how the social attitudes and behaviors are changing around the organization, general lifestyle changes, changes in distribution and demography of population, a mix of cultures, changes in culture. These are all related to the social analysis. Okay, or a social dimension of steeple analysis. Similarly, we look at the technological thing. Technological thing is, for example, what is the current technology and what is the new innovations that we can consider for the next 5 years. So if you talk about the near context, we'll look at what is the current technology that we have, and that will help us to bring in the changes or to implement the changes, right? If you talk about far context at zone 4, for the technological things, we see that how the technology is developing and what we can expect the development of major technologies by the multinational companies or by the multinational tech heads, how what we can expect the changes, right? Similarly, look at the economical things. What are the important economical factors to consider in the next 5 years? Okay, this can be, for example, how the market is running, right? What is the market value? How is your relationship with the customer, client, and suppliers and the funders who is going to fund your projects, right? This is near context. So far context, it's about global economical trends that have or likely to have an impact on our organization. Okay, so definitely a global economy will also affect any organization as long as they are in international organizations. They are international organizations. So global definitely affects. Okay, the next environmental, of course, like is also important thing. Environmental, right? So environmental things also need to be considered. Okay. So what are the environmental consideration locally and globally now in the next 3 to 5 years? Right? What is the local environmental impact on our operations? How does this local environment impact on our operations? This is similarly also we need to see that for external, okay, about the national, international environmental impacts on our operations, on our market. Fine, that is also need to be evaluated. Also, we need to evaluate the political and legal and ethical things, right? So, for the near context as well as for the far context, political things like what is the new for the law, how do the local political institution policies are affecting our operations and the organization, right? Similarly, about the legal things also, we need to be aware of that as an organization, like, such as tax legalization, wage legalization, okay, environmental legalization, healthy and safety legalization. It's all everything. International or far context, we have to look at the human rights, for example, impact of international relationship. Okay, uh, uh, something like that. So need to be taken care. Ethical issues also need to be considered. So we see that all these dimensions of steeple analysis is to analyze the external context of the organization, where the organization stands, what support the organization will get extend from external context, that is from zone 3 and zone 4, to implement the change. That is in steeple analysis. So not related to dimension and drivers in table 2, they are not definitive and complete. That is, what is been discussed here is not definitive and complete. It can be differentiated or it can be different from organization to organization. Not all have equal significance of any particular organization. It is important to identify those that has most significance for your organization, and steep analysis should be carried out in a brainstorming and collaborative environment. Right? Steep analysis is not a job of one person. It's not a job of one person. It has to be done in brainstorming sessions. It has to be done in an brainstorming sessions. So steep analysis should be carried out by a group of people about the organization, and not every organization will have same kind of analysis. It depends from organization to organization, place to place, right? Because every place has a different ethical issues, has a different environmental issues, has a different legal issues, and many different things, right? So it is different from one another. So we have to be aware of that, like how it is different from one another. Okay. Okay. Now these are the in zone three factors are closer to the organization in terms of interaction and influences because zone three are near external factors. Zone three factors are near external factors. So near external factors are likely to have more influence and interaction with the organization, right? So these factors need to be considered more. For example, change in your customer or client base. So your customer or your clients are near factors, right? So any changes there, any change, the cultural change, economical change, right? These are all need to be considered. Supply chain issues need to be considered. External funding changes, all the stakeholders and all, relationship with the stakeholders, change in the market structure, specific new technologies. This is technological changes. Labor supply and skill shortages, and local transport infrastructure, local planning laws. These are all near factors. That is related to the zone three, and they interact and they influence the organization more. Okay, the internal organization context is zone 2. Zone 2 context is the internal inside the organization. Okay, so it is an internal review that must be clear and its scope, what will be covered and what won't be covered is necessary to identify those resources issues and the structure that may contain constraints or enhance the future direction of the organization and there influence the choice of change strategy. So here these internal review must be clear, right? And this will help you or may constrain the future direction of the organization. Okay, we need to analyze that also, and this may determine the feasibility of introducing necessary changes through the various projects, right? So the resource categories that need to be investigated in the internal context, that is in zone 2 context, is physical resources. What is the condition of the physical resources of the organization? For example, the building condition, the plants that we are using, machineries, systems, okay, technologies that we are using. So what is the conditions of the physical resources that we have in our organization? Similarly, human resources, what skills, what expertise does we have in terms of our human skills, like so the workforce that we have, right? And what are their skills they have? What are the workforce is open to learn new technologies or not? Open to learn new skills or not? That is human resources. That is also need to be analyzed. Financial resources. How good we are at financial things, like our what is our stand or what how where do we stand financially in the market or in the organization? Are we capable of investing more in the changes in the upcoming projects or not? That is financial resources. Also intangible things like the culture and the innovations, the ideas, open to learn, open to innovate, okay, open to interact, communication activities, all are the intangible things. right? So these are all need to be analyzed. This will fairly influence the change strategies. Okay, all these will definitely influence the change strategies, because through this we will get to know where do we stand as an organization, inside the organization, what the values we have, or what the resources we have. Okay, and how we good to plan for the new changes. Okay. Okay, so these are the resources that we identified here in tab 2.3. They are both hard resources as well as the soft resources associated with the people and their attitudes and intellects. Soft resources are considerably more difficult to evaluate accurately as well as to manage, because soft resources are not physical. So this has to deal with a person to person. Okay, people have different feelings. Okay, different way of thinking, different way of analyzing. Fine. So soft resources are not easy to evaluate than the physical resources. And the last context, that is the immediate context, zone one. This involves you as an employee and your position in the organization and your values in the organization. Okay, so your own position in the organization, your values in the organization, your strength, okay, your skills and job skills, knowledge you have. Okay, this is your strength. Okay, and also your weaknesses inside that you might be having to working in an organization, like lack of skills, for example, lack of knowledge. Okay, these are all these are all need to be analyzed, so that we are ready with everybody is ready with the change strategies. Okay. So what are the different aspect at the zone one is value, ethics, and culture. What is your values? What is the culture that you follow, or what you see the culture of the organization? Are you okay with that? Okay, with your work environment, you are good or not? That is that. Then relationship, how good you are in relationship with your colleagues, with your work people, okay, with your team. Fine, that is also important. Knowledge, skills, and personal attribute. What is your knowledge? How good you are? What is your expertise? What skills you have? Okay, infrastructure. Do you have access to the communication? All the infrastructure in the organization. Do you have an access for communication? For example, do you have an access to the computers? For example, do you have an access to the resources? For example, these are all comes under the infrastructure. Suggestions for improvement. So can you identify the changes and the suggestions to improve your organization? This is also very important. So these are all the things that will be considered from the immediate context, that is in zone one. Okay, so these are all need to be analyzed. So all these, so we need to analyze the organization from all four zones. Zone 4, zone 3, that is then external context. We'll talk about near external, we'll talk about far external context. Then internal context, that is your zone 2 as an organization, and immediate context, which is uh, zone 1, that is you and your working environment, right? All these four zones need to be analyzed for in the strategic analysis. Uh, Excuse me. assessing the overall picture, we can do a SWOT analysis to assess again the overall picture. A SWOT analysis is analysis of a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Okay, this is normally be conducted within a team setting to achieve some outcomes. So this is like a matrix we put it, where we put our strengths and weaknesses, as well as the opportunities and the threats against these strengths and weaknesses. So Steeple provides us indication where the opportunities and threats may rise, while the SWOT analysis will help you to understand the personal and organizational strengths and weaknesses. So, through the Steeple analysis, what we analyze is the external context, right? The near external, which is at zone 3, and far external, which is at zone 4. Then the SWOT analysis will help us to understand the personal and the organizational strengths and weaknesses. So here for zone 2 and zone 1, we can apply the SWOT analysis and to analyze and to get to know the strengths and the weaknesses of the personal employees, for example, as well as to the organization. You can do the SWOT analysis. So SWOT analysis involves the following things, that is focusing first on the strengths of the organization. That is, for example, strengths could be the expertise that you are having, the research that you are doing, the R&D, the research and development departments, the financial things that you are having. So focusing on your strengths as an organization as well as an employee. So a list of strengths is agreed and entered into the strength cell of this matrix, right? So here we can enter those strengths that will identify, right? Now the same process is repeated to identify and enter the items, that is to identify the weaknesses of the organization, for example, and of the personal, then the opportunities, and then the threats. So we'll enter the weaknesses, okay, and then we'll add the opportunities and the threats here, fine. So filling out the SWOT matrix provide a view of organization current position. What are the strengths and all. So entering items in opportunities and threat areas indicate the answer to the following question, that is what opportunities arise from the change as a result of the strengths. That is the strengths that what we have. For example, the expertise we have, the resources we have, the finance we have, then what opportunities we can get from this strength, right? We will get that. And then what threats could rise there to be exposed to as a result of weaknesses, right? Where we are lacking. What we are lacking. Those weak this can be bring us some weaknesses. For example, where do we lack in terms of finance? Do we lack in terms of expertise? Do we lack in terms of resources? Okay. So those things brings us a so can show us the weaknesses. Okay, so these can be entered in this. The next step is to examine your organization's strengths and weaknesses in relation to the opportunities identified. So you may have a skills needed to produce a particular product or services, but perhaps you don't have a capacity. That is a weakness, right? So you now analyze, right, and you'll get to know what are the strengths, what is the opportunities that has been created, and what are the threats that you may face because of the strengths and weaknesses that you have in your organization through this SWOT analysis. So SWOT analysis benefits a way of organizing your thoughts about the potential for change. It's a way of structuring individual and group thought process and should help you to reach a rational conclusion before deciding on the course of action needed. Through the SWOT analysis, it should help you to analyze the things, and it should help you to analyze and to see that what opportunities you have and what weaknesses you will have. So what threats you have. So in that case, you can decide like to work on the weaknesses so that you to minimize the threats for the organization. That's about the SWOT analysis. So in the whole strategic analysis, you can do the steeple analysis for the external context, and you can do the SWOT analysis for the. Okay, that's all. Once you do the analysis, then you can go for you are ready for the change to start working or to implement the change, right? So you analyze the whole organization from the external context and from the internal context by using stipple tools and SWOT analysis, right? Now you have to move forward and you have to select the strategy. You have to accept the strategy and you have to implement the strategy. Okay, so the final step is the change proposal and strategic choice. Decision optimal way forward will naturally depending upon the context. So there is a three criteria suggested by Johnson and Scholes against any appropriateness of all change proposals should be evaluated. So which is suitability, acceptability, and feasibility. So, whatever your proposal is, whether it is suitable or not, and if it is suitable, whether it is acceptable or not, and if it is acceptable, if it is feasible or not. If it is feasible, then we can move ahead to implement the change. We can move ahead to implement the change. So the three major criteria: suitability, do the proposal address the circumstances in which organization is operating? Acceptability, whether this proposal offers you a good return on investment, and feasibility, that this proposed outcome of change program actually be achieved or not. Okay, so this can be achieved by looking at the sources availability and the capabilities available so that we can achieve that. So we have to go through these three major criterias for any strategy, whether it is a suitable strategy for the organization, whether this strategy is acceptable, it will give us a good feedback or a good return, and whether it is feasible that we can achieve through this strategy, we can achieve these changes or not. So these three criteria should be followed out. So finally, in conclusion, whatever the scale of change proposed, a key requirement is that it is communicated to all the stakeholders to gain acceptance. It is not only the organization or a person in the organization is going to work on the strategy for a change. Okay, so everything should be communicated with the stakeholders to gain the acceptance. Whether it is in, for example, the stakeholders might be, for example, the investors, okay, the supply chain and all. So everyone should be aware of this. It is organization strategic plan which sets out the key priorities and objectives, and these strategic plan may be implemented through a series of operational plans that break down the strategic objectives into programs, projects, and packages with the dedicated resources and APIs. So this is about this strategic plan. So we have to have any strategic plans and strategic choices to implement the changes. So this is all what we have here in chapter number 2. Chapter number 2 as a summary is describing about the what's the strategy, what will be the strategic plan for to implement the change. To make a strategy, we need to analyze the organization from the external context as well as the internal context. Analyzing the organization from the external context involve analyzing the near external operators or factors as well as the far external factors. we can do a steeper analysis for that. And the internal context and the immediate context, zone 2 and zone 1, is also need to be analyzed, and this can be analyzed by using SWOT analysis. And this strategic plan, after the analysis, this must be communicated to all the stakeholders, and this must be passed through three major criteria given by the scholars, which is the acceptability, suitability, acceptability, and feasibility. So these three criteria should pass any strategic choice, and that should be communicated, and then these changes can be implemented. So this is all what you have here for you in this chapter number 2. If you have any questions